Mindfulness for Resilience with Mary Jo Federle, funded by the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation and brought to you by SCI&U for Healthy Living.
Well, the mindfulness practice sessions, I hope, are really being, useful and helpful for all of you. And I did mention last week that we're kind of going through stages of what would be considered mindfulness training, because of course we have to train ourselves and our brains to do things that it's not used to doing. But we were just talking about the brain and how the latest research and all the latest science is really showing us that the brain is very much more neuroplastic than we ever thought, and we can tap into that in mindfulness in many ways, because mindfulness actually helps us to kind of expand into parts of the brain, and also to give the brain challenges that will help it to stay really youthful and neuroplastic. One of the signs of aging and of Alzheimer's and also dementia is that, especially Alzheimer's, in those studies they can see that the neuroplasticity, or the capacity of the brain to kind of create new pathways and do what it really does best, are actually shutting down. Those capacities of the brain are what's the challenge in Alzheimer's. So I think it could be said that mindfulness is really great for keeping your brain youthful, as well as for a number of other great benefits, such as increased mental focus, enhanced clarity, the capacity to be able to ameliorate your nervous system in a situation where you need to be able to do that, to dampen it down or to calm it. So those are all the real great tools that we get when we learn mindfulness. So in the training, we're starting to learn, first of all, we just learned how to become even conscious, that we're maybe not conscious or aware all the time. And so that conscious relaxation is kind of the beginning stages. And then we kind of talked about having this attitude of friendliness and compassion, which are so very important in mindfulness and in life, that we have toward ourselves, because when we start to get into a closed, judgmental kind of concept of ourself, we move into a stale state of mind. And there's a great little tale, I'm sure many of you have heard it, where there's a man, and they live in this, very remote kind of village in the northern mountains of Tibet or something. And he has one son, and they have horses. And this man and his son just basically survived by providing one good horse to one of the royalty throughout the year. And the man's son was out working with the horses, and one of the horses got away. And so all the villagers everybody came around and said, "Oh, that's so sad. You don't have your horse anymore. What are you going to do?" And anyways, the horse, the next week, the man said to them, "Don't worry, we don't know the full story. Let's wait and see." And of course, the horse came back with a whole bunch of new mares from the wild. So that was a good thing. And the story goes on. I won't tell the whole story, but the son who trains the horses and takes care of them ends up breaking his leg further down. And of course, all the villagers come back again and say, "Oh, you're so unlucky. That's really sad. You're not going to be able to survive. What will you do?" And the old man says, "Well, we don't know the full story yet. Let's just wait and see." And so the very next day, their village gets attacked, and all the young men have to go off to war. But of course, his son doesn't have to. So it's just an example of how judgment can really keep us from being able to see the whole picture. And that's really what we're doing in mindfulness. We're allowing ourselves to see the whole picture. Now, in some cases, such as like today, we've gone from learning how to be conscious to that attitude of friendliness, to now attuning to our senses And some of us may not like, oh, I don't want to feel my body, or I don't want to notice my pain or whatever. And that's very, understandable. But in fact, in the practice of mindfulness and in the practice of learning more about your brain and how it works, we've discovered that we can actually help our system more by bringing into awareness these states rather than denying them or avoiding them. So that's another good kind of thing to think about as we move into the practice today, which is going to happen really shortly as we move into really starting to cultivate awareness of our senses. So the arriving in presence piece we've done, the conscious relaxing we've done, and we did a little bit last week of just using the breath to kind of tune in to where you are right now. So we'll begin with that, and we'll allow you to find a nice comfortable spot and get into your position so that you can really allow yourself to tune into your senses. So I'm going to invite you to do that now, to take a moment and get comfortable and steady. Find a place where you can sit for 5 to 8 minutes without too much disturbance. And as you settle, allow yourself to close your eyes, arms relaxed by your side. Perhaps your palms are open on the lap facing the ceiling, if that's comfortable. And now I invite you to take 3 big deep breaths. Without strain, just take 3 beautiful big breaths. Good. And at the end of that last exhale, allow your breathing to return to its normal rhythm. And tune into that rhythm. Just notice the movement of breath. Can you feel the movement? Can you feel expansion on the inhale and this sense of deepening on your exhale? And also notice now where you sit in your chair and how you sit. Feel into your position. Can you notice the weight of your body? And as you continue to cultivate awareness of how your breath is feeling as it moves through you, can you use the exhale to release and relax, letting go of any tension? And now notice the sensation of the weight of your body. Notice the weight in the seat, perhaps at the backrest. Perhaps you notice the weight of your arms on your chest or on your belly. Can you feel the weight of your hands on your lap? Or for that matter, can you feel into the inside of your hands and relax them? And continuing to notice the touch feelings of your body. Can you feel your clothes anywhere on you? Or can you feel perhaps your hair brushing on you? The sensation of touch and feeling allow us to also, as you inhale and exhale, feel like you can release into your tissue, into your musculature. Excuse me. And as you do that, perhaps as you may notice the eyelids and the weight and the feeling of the eyes as they're closed, the softness at the outer corners of your eyes, relaxing the center of your brow and feeling that smooth relaxation move up toward the skull and the hairline, relaxing the brain, releasing it away from the skull. And perhaps you notice also behind your closed eyes, the movement of light, perhaps the movement of a flickering or some image that may come. And as you notice, allow yourself to relax your face and the outer corners of your eyes. And then feeling your nose, can you feel the breath moving in? Can you feel it at the back of your throat? And as you're noticing, do you notice any smells? The sense of smell. And as you relax the inside of your mouth and release the tongue, and let the tongue soften at the back of the throat and broaden, what do you taste? And as you relax the back of the throat and relax the ears, releasing the ear lobes and the eardrum, now notice what you hear and the orchestra of sounds that may be around you. Perhaps you can attune and really stretch your awareness to notice sounds that are far away. Perhaps you heard my lab walking across the floor. And now attune to the sounds that are closer to you. Perhaps you hear your own breathing. You could move your awareness to the inside feeling of sound. Allowing yourself now to allow all of those senses and the varying difference of them. Perhaps there's heat and cold. Perhaps you feel hard and soft. Perhaps your mind has a feeling of urgency, and yet there's also this place of contentment and relaxation. Noticing all of these sensations in the myriad of forms and the beautiful aliveness that they all present. And allowing them to all be there in your awareness, in your moment-to-moment awareness, with a kind, curious observation. And again, taking it all in and allowing that sense of your senses, the beautiful array of your senses to be existing in all their various different dimensions. Allow yourself to bring that heightened awareness, not heightened in a bad way, but in a way that gives you capacity to choose and to observe with non-judgment. Bring that awareness throughout your day in a kind and friendly way, and really celebrate the vitality of your life force expressing itself. And the senses are such a beautiful expression of our humanity. Um, and I kind of think we have the sixth sense that we don't often talk about, which is, the sense of things that we're aware of energy. And we haven't really, we call that, I suppose, ESP, but extrasensory perception. But we don't talk about that one a lot. And I think as a person, myself speaking anyways, who has had some of the other more tactile senses taken away, such as touch, I particularly noticed that my sense of my extra sense, that's kind of more the intuitive sense of where I am in space, or what someone, when I walk into a room and I can tell someone's really angry. I'm not, I'm not feeling that with my hand. I'm feeling that with a sense, with my brain. And I just really invite you to think about your senses in a way that also includes that sixth sense of perceiving energy and noticing the different forms of energy that exist, including the physical forms. So if you have any questions or if you want to comment, now's a great time to do that. And we welcome those here and also on the YouTube platform, which I hope you're finding and locating if you want to go back to these practices.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I sometimes feel that, that sometimes during mindfulness, I get a feeling of like sadness. And I don't really know how to deal with that. And
Okay.
I'm wondering if you had thoughts.
Yeah. So my thought would be, so observing your sadness is great. You've done that. My next thought would be observe the thought behind the sadness. So there's some thought probably that also comes along with the feeling. And I would encourage you to can you tell me what the thought might be?
Well, sometimes I just think about like the state of the world, or everyone in New York City, or friends, and and the weight of that feels real to me sometimes.
Yeah. And the weight of that is real. And I think acknowledging it and acknowledging that there is sadness there is really valuable. And mindfulness is a place to be able to look at that and accept it. And also, first of all, be conscious of it. So, wow, I feel sad about this. And then the next thing would be continuing your mindfulness, doing what you're doing, allowing that sadness to exist. And if the sadness is, kind of sort of more of a dominant kind of theme that's sort of happening throughout the whole practice, I would just continue to hold space for it in loving kindness and acceptance, the same principles that we use, and just cultivate a sense of being able to hold that and not have to do anything to fix it or to change it, but just be with it for the moment. And then you and I could have a conversation further about, if you wanted to work with that, how and where you would go with that particular piece. But in the mindfulness piece, I would invite you to just continue to kind of hold it in your heart in kind observation, and just keep noticing, what does my body do when I notice my sadness? What are my senses doing? Can I still hear other things? Can I still be attentive to the weight of my body? So can I hold this, in other words, and still be conscious that I'm present, and that even though this is existing, it's not the only thing that exists in this moment. And And yes, looking at the sadness, and you may find that even acknowledging it to the point where you really give it some space to express itself to you in its fullness might give you some other clues and some other insights as to where to go with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great question.
Mary Jo,
Yeah.
you've talked in the past and continue to kind of develop this, the breathing piece of mindfulness, but I know I was a few sessions ago, you said mindfulness is not just breathing, it's much more than that. Can you tell us a little bit about that, I guess, awareness of your breathing, and then how to differentiate that, and how you build on that, and what,
Yeah.
where we're going, kind of?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's a great question. So mindfulness and the capacity of our mind to be the capacity of us to be able to shift our mind from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state is very much a part of learning how to breathe properly, and not just properly, but being conscious of your breath and allowing the breathing to bring your awareness into the present moment. So it's a really important tool. And as such, it's also a very potent piece of our psychosomatic reality. So in other words, when we become conscious of our breath, if we're kind of having a lot of challenges mentally, we might not be able to do conscious breathing very easily, because it might bring up too much, the steady breath or whatever. That's with someone with extreme mental challenges. And then you move to the middle continuum, where most of us are, and we can actually go into being conscious of our breath and having the mind become conscious of the breath, and that will then allow the breath to then change the disposition of the mind. So as the mind becomes more conscious of breathing, we drop into a place where the breathing and the awareness of breathing has the capacity to shift the disposition of the brain and of the sympathetic and parasympathetic system toward a place of more ease and flow. So when we're learning mindfulness, we do want to be conscious of the breathing, and we use the breath a lot, as you notice, pretty much every time we go into 3 deep breaths and we become conscious of the breathing. And then we may go into a different facet of training our sensory, our awareness. But ultimately, we were going to, and last week, I know you weren't here, but we did do a more conscious breathing piece. And ultimately, we will keep moving toward using and developing tools of how to use the breath to shape the mind. So, not to get too complicated, but it's like in language. We may learn the conversation, and we may learn some of the easier verbs and action words right now, because those are important foundations. But the real meat and heart of mindfulness and meditation is, in fact, breathing. But then, from the capacity of being able to learn to use the breath in the way that we would if we were meditating or mindful, we then can also expand into different ways of developing awareness in the brain, not just with the breath, but concurrently with the breath. So it's hand in hand with mindfulness, and yet it also can be isolated as a piece that we do to develop more capacity to use that tool. Hopefully that answers that question well enough and in enough sensical words.
No, that's good.
I-
It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Just starting to understand this, it's really helpful when you explain that.
Yeah. The breath is huge, as you said. It's everything.
I have a question, Mary Jo, kind of
Yeah.
based around mindfulness, sleeping, that kind of thing. So when you have a situation, which I encountered last night, so have no trouble falling asleep, like 2 hours later and wake up with a startle or something, which is a horrible thing. Is there a way to talk yourself through a state of mindfulness to calm that back down, to be able to return to a decent sleep? Do you know what I mean? Like, because right now I can go through mindfulness and I'm listening to your voice, but when it's quiet in my house and I can't turn something on, it's just quiet.
Yeah. So what I would suggest for you and anyone else in that situation, there's great practices in yoga called Yoga Nidra, which is for sleep. You could look those up. We'll post this particular concept into the YouTube channel. But in the moment and in the context of mindfulness, I would recommend that you do two things. So first of all, you allow yourself to acknowledge the startle that woke you up. So was there a feeling? Was there an image? Was there a dream? Was there a body, something? And just be with that for a moment. Be really mindful. Do exactly what we just did. Go through all of your senses, but with conscious breathing. So at the same time you're doing that, you're consciously breathing, and you're wanting to basically slow your breathing or allow your breathing to come to a rhythmic place, so smooth and rhythmic. So ideally the inhale and the exhale are the same. If not, the exhale is a little bit longer. And then you're going to take that exhale a little bit longer piece after you've done that kind of just, okay, I'm here, I'm now, I have weight, I'm going to get comfortable. I can feel my, belly's a little bit fluttery, my heart's racing a little bit from being woken up. Whatever you're noticing, I'm worried about something or other, I've noticed that. And then allow yourself to go back into your breathing. And I would recommend going from 27 to 0 backwards. So the way you do that is you just inhale 27, exhale 26. Inhale 25, exhale 25. Inhale 24, exhale 24. Inhale 23, exhale 23. And do that backwards to 0. See where you are when you get to 0. Most people can't make it to 0. You will do one of two things. You'll lose track, and you'll lose track because whatever was bothering you has come up again. And that's okay. You go back to 27 and you start over if you lose track, if you lose your spot. And then if not, you're going to go all the way to 0, and maybe you've made it to 0. And that's, each inhale and exhale is one number. So if you've done that, you're probably now in a really good state to do a bit more mindfulness because your breathing is going to be smooth and rhythmic. And I would do the conscious relaxation piece of mindfulness, which I think we did in our third session. And then I would do that. I would just turn it on or turn on a mindfulness something or other and just let yourself be then led through a practice. If you still aren't there at the bottom of 27 inhale, exhales to 0.
I like the counting idea backwards.
It's a great one. I get every time I do it, I never make it to 0.
I'm gonna try. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
There's a question in the chat from Kim, and it says, I go to a nearby park and I try to enjoy the present, colors, sounds, smells, etc. Do you have suggestions as to how I can benefit more as my mind still wanders back to the things I need to do? So she's saying her mind as well in the park.
Yeah, that's a great question. We all do that. Because the mind's job is to kind of take everything in and make sense of it. So I would just allow yourself, Kim, to to notice that with curiosity. Where does the mind go? Where does it go to? And then also at the same time, check your breath. So in that moment when the mind wanders off, just breathe in again and exhale and do, what I just suggested, but do it in a smaller segment. So maybe it's 3 breaths. You inhale, exhale 3, inhale 2, exhale 2, and bring yourself back to your body, to your senses. So what am I feeling? What am I noticing? Is there a state that you notice when you wander? Is there something going on in your physical body? And if not, that's fine too. You just notice and you go back to 3, 2, 1, 0. And at 0, just allow yourself to do that really beautiful open attention. And notice what you didn't notice before. Maybe take your eyes a bit further. Maybe your ears can hear a bit further or closer. And so really use your senses, your sensory awareness in its full cacophony to really keep you, not keep you, but enable you to enjoy that present moment even more fully. So my challenge for you today would be to bring your senses into your full awareness and think about them, all 6 of them, because we talked about 6 today. Of course, sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing, and extrasensory perception. And just play with them. Notice your senses all day long and notice where you are in the moment with every different sense, if you can. And then we'll see you next week. I hope all of you are going to stay safe. I know you will. And on that note, that sense of safety is also a sense in our body. That's a felt sense. So think about that.